News of 13 News.
Good evening and welcome once again to another edition of Sunday Live. The issue of the death penalty is one that stirs heated emotions on both sides. Those on both sides of the issue give convincing arguments in support of their positions. Legal executions are becoming so frequent now in this country that they fail to grab public attention. And next year, some experts on the issue of the death penalty believe the rate of legal executions in this country will quicken, perhaps to one a week. There are, at this time, about 1,513 inmates on death row. 39 states have death penalty statutes on the books, and opinion polls find an overwhelming majority of Americans in favor of such laws. But the debate continues whether the death penalty discourages would-be killers and whether it can be applied fairly. To discuss the issue of the death penalty is an opponent of the measure, Espy, a research specialist with the Capital Punishment Research Project at the University of Alabama Law Center in Tuscaloosa. Mr. Espy has been studying the death penalty for the last 15 years and has documented over 14,000 legal executions that have occurred in the United States since colonial times. Mr. Espy, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
What's the object of the Research Center in Tuscaloosa to begin the program?
Well, you mentioned that I'm opposed to the death penalty. I am. I would like to stress at this time that the project is totally objective in its nature. It's the first time that a serious effort has ever been made not only to chronicle every legal execution that has taken place in the United States from the earliest colonial period down to the present, but also to gather as much information on each case as is possible for the use of interested scholars, historians, members of the legal profession. And I would like to stress at this time, if I may, that we receive requests every week from both proponents and opponents of the death penalty, and we are always very, very happy to provide the factual information that we have, because we sincerely believe that any discussion of a subject so solemn as life and death deserves to be based on fact and not on emotion.
What have you found in your studies on capital punishment?
Well, you know, Mr. Daniels, when I started this work 15 years ago, my position was somewhat ambivalent on the subject. Actually, I guess basically I favored the death penalty. But as time went on and as I went into more and more cases, I became convinced that it has no deterrent value. And can I cite you an example?
Sure.
In 1955, Gerald A. Gallego became the first man to be put to death in the gas chamber in the state of Mississippi. Today, his son, who was 14 years old at the time his father was executed, stands under sentence of death to be asphyxiated in both the states of Nevada and California. It made no impression on him. Surely it should have. Last year, the state of Texas executed James David Autry by lethal injection. Autry came from a broken family, a very, very deprived background. Probably the only person who ever loved him and who he ever loved was his younger brother, Robert Autry. 3 months after James David Autry was executed for murder, his brother Robert was charged with the mutilation murder of a 59-year-old woman in Texas, and he now awaits trial for his life. So evidently it didn't make an impression on him. I became struck by the discrimination that has been used in the imposition of the death penalty. And if I can cite you an example, here in Alabama, we've currently confirmed 719 legal executions that have taken place since the first, which occurred in 1812, before we were a state. Of those 719, 607, or 84.4%, were black. Only 84, or 11.7%, was white. Well, of course, you know, and I know, and everyone else knows, the blacks have never even approached 50% of the population in this state, yet they have accounted for 84.4% of the total that we have executed in Alabama legally.
Would that also be true in the case of other minorities in this country when it comes to capital punishment?
Yes, of course, we have a large black minority population in the South, but when you go to a state like Massachusetts, for example, you can see how the wave of immigration affected it. When the Irish first started coming, most of the persons executed in Massachusetts were Irish. The Italians, the Polish. With each wave, they became the victims of the executioner.
Okay, one question before we take a break. You say that the Sun Belt has always been the most execution-prone section of the country. What brings you to that conclusion?
Well, we've accounted for more executions than any other section, and if you will study the statistics of the people who are on death row today, you will see that the South and the far West account for most of the ones who are under sentence of death. The only two non-Southern or Midwestern states that have a substantial portion of death row population are the states of Illinois and Ohio.
Okay. The death penalty, the pros and cons of the issue, our topic of discussion this week on Sunday Live. And we'll be back to take Watts Espy, a death penalty opponent, is my guest. And you're invited to call us with your calls and comments at 741-9886 or 741-WVTN. And we'll begin to answer your calls following these words. We hope you'll stay with us. The issue of the death penalty, capital punishment, is our topic of discussion this week. Watt Espy, a death penalty opponent, is my guest. Let's go to our phones for our first calls. Mary, you're on the line. This is Sunday Live. Your question, please.
No, it's not a question. It's
I can't hear her.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Hello, Mary, are you there? Okay, let's try another line. Okay, Kenneth, you're on the air. Your question or comment?
I can't hear her.
Okay, your question or comment? I'm sorry, we can't hear. We've got to straighten the audio out. During our talk before the program, you mentioned that a number of juveniles and women have been executed in the past, but particularly juveniles, and you tend to believe that that could be the case today.
Well, it's surprising, Carl. We have documented the execution of 3 12-year-old children in this country legally. Here in Alabama, we hanged 2 14-year-old children. As late as 1944, a 14-year-old boy was electrocuted in the state of Alabama. In 1948, a 14 and a 15-year-old boy were electrocuted in Woodville, Mississippi. Now, I would like to point this out at this time, if I may. Mississippi and Louisiana are the only 2 states that had a portable electric chair. And what they did, they had a big state truck with its own generator, and they just drove from county seat to county seat and set the electric chair up in the courthouse or the jail and electrocuted them locally. But the point that I'm making is we have certainly executed children in the past and well into this century. And today there are a number of people on death row, not just in the South. For instance, Joseph Aliosi, who's on death row in Pennsylvania, was only 15 at the time he committed the crime for which he now stands to die. So we have executed them in the past. We're fully capable of executing them today.
Okay. Let's try and get another phone call in. Okay, Dorothy, you're on the air, hopefully. Your question or comment?
Has there been a survey done as to who is committing most of these crimes? Would that have something to do with how many is being punished for it? And I'd like to ask this. If you knew before you committed that crime that if you were caught, the penalty would be electrocution, would you do that crime? And another thing, I hate to see this being made a race issue, but since the question has come up, I'd like to ask how many blacks have committed murder in the Birmingham area in the past week? Have you done a survey on that? But I think let the punishment fit the crime, irregardless of who's committing the crime. I don't think color should have anything to do with it. I think it should just be let the punishment fit the crime.
Okay, thank you for your call. Your comment today?
Well, the purpose of our project is not to track crimes as they occur, but only to chronicle and document the legal execution. And all that I can cite to the lady are the figures that I've given and what our statistics show. We currently show, I might add, 84, not us, but the Legal Defense Fund in their death row census currently shows 84 people under sentence of death in the state of Alabama. Of those 84, 53 are black.
Okay. Let's try and take another call. Jack, you're on the air. Your question or comment?
What percentage would you say in Alabama believe in capital punishment? You know, if y'all have any type of statistics on the general public?
Well, the polls show a little over 80% today, so I'm in a distinct minority.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your call. Okay, let's go to line 2. Okay, line 2, you're on the air. Your question or comment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Daniels?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I want to speak to the gentleman that's against capital punishment.
Okay, Mr. Espy, he can hear you.
Yes, sir. I'm a minister, and I believe that refusing even medical help to people after they've taken off in a life machine and still survive is murder, and hatred is murder. But the inequities I notice is very obvious today in Alabama and other places are these, and it's violating the person's civil rights when the black people are expedited to the gas chambers or the needle or electric chair, and the poor whites, they can't get a big mouthpiece or a big lawyer or two. And mass killers, as Paul Harvey said, they're seldom get executed, and women who kill other people and don't pattern within the criteria of the ERA, whatever, they don't get executed, and it's very much inequities in it, and therefore I would be against it the way it's working. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your call. Okay, let's go to line 3, and Donna, you're on the air. Your question or comment?
Yes, I'd like to know, in response to the woman who didn't want to make it a race issue, if there have been any comparative studies in which you find a black person being convicted to death, sentenced to death for a crime that a white person may not get that same sentence.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for asking that question. I would like to say this. We've executed approximately 150 people in the state of Alabama for the crime of rape. Of course, it's not a capital crime today unless the victim's murdered. But of those approximately 150 people, only 2 were white, Joseph Hockenberry and Daniel Reedy, who were sentenced from here in Jefferson County and electrocuted. Let's see, I've got the date here. I like to be as specific as I can. They were electrocuted on March 16, 1945, but I think there's a clear indication there that the crime of rape, the punishment of death for the crime of rape was almost exclusively reserved for black people, and that is not only the case in Alabama, but throughout the South. In response to something the minister mentioned a few minutes ago about the ladies, I would like to give our statistics on those, if I may. We currently show, I believe it's 286 females to have been executed in this country, and that is out of a total of over 14,000. So there's certainly been a disparity there, and they make up a very, very small percentage of those on death row today throughout the country. In fact, we have, out of 84 people on death row in Alabama, only 2 of them are females. And as far as the Alabama statistics on females who have been executed, we hanged 15 black women, we've electrocuted 1 black woman, and we electrocuted 2 white women. So Alabama has executed 18 women out of a total of 719 persons who have been executed.
Watt, when rape was a capital punishment offense, in your studies, have you found that those black men who were convicted and sentenced to death for rape, were their victims white women or were their victims black women?
Here in Alabama, I don't believe we've ever executed a black man for the rape of a black woman. Some states have done so, but they have invariably been not adult women, but very, very young black girls.
Well, what does that say? Does that say society believes the body of a white woman is more precious and sacred than that of a black woman?
Well, the figures speak for themselves, I think. You can draw your own conclusions. That's the conclusion I draw at any rate.
Okay. Let's take another call. Robert, you're on the air. Your question or comment?
Yes, sir. I agree with the gentleman. I don't think the death penalty is distributed fairly. Suppose by some reason they execute the wrong person.
Okay.
Now,
that has... excuse me. Go ahead, Robert.
If I had my opinion about it, what I would do, I know it would be costly, but if you could put these people in solitary confinement and make conditions so miserable for them, they might execute themselves. I don't think no man has the right to take the life of another person, even the law,
Well,
because you get out there and kill somebody, and then they put you in jail and kill you. That's just as worse a crime as the person that did the killing.
I agree with you, sir, and I'd like to make a comment on this question of innocence, if I may. Two of the most eminent scholars in the United States on this subject, Dr. Hugo A. Bideau of Tufts University and Dr. Michael Radelet of the University of Florida in Gainesville, are currently doing a study of people who have been convicted of capital crimes just in this century. Now, not all of them were sentenced to die, and not all of them were executed. But they all could have been sentenced to die and all could have been executed, and they have found over 200 cases of innocent persons in this century alone who have been convicted of capital crimes. And to me, nothing can be more abhorrent or more disgusting to our society or to any free society than that the state should unjustly take the life of one of its citizens.
Okay, let's go to line one. Pat, you're on the air. Your question or comment?
Oh, yes. I'd like to know if the man that we're talking to, if somebody come in his house and just raped and killed his wife and children, would he want to slap them on the hand and let them loose?
I certainly would not. In fact, I'd probably kill them myself, but I wouldn't expect the state to do it for me.
Okay, we've got to take a break now. The death penalty, capital punishment, our topic of discussion this week on Sunday Live. My guest is Mr. Watt Espy. We'll be back to take more of your calls and questions following these words, and we hope you'll stay with us. Watt Espy, a research specialist with the Capital Punishment Research Project of the University of Alabama Law Center in Tuscaloosa, is my guest. He's an opponent of the death penalty, and that's our topic this week. Let's go to line two. Mary, you were the first caller, but we couldn't get you on earlier.
Right. I have first a comment and then a question. Well, maybe a question first. Everybody complains about their taxes. Our taxes pay for the prison systems. We have people that get out and work hard every day and fight to have a place to live, to feed and clothe their children, to give them medical care and dental care, and still can't get it done. Yet someone goes out and murders someone, commits the most heinous crimes. They are committed to prison. They've got free room and board, free medical care, dental care, the best. And I don't think it's right. They can live 50 years and never have another ounce of responsibility. And it's just not fair.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Did you have a question?
I just can't believe that Mr. Espy really doesn't believe in capital punishment. I really can't, because if it were to mine, I'd be the first one after him.
I can assure you, lady, I do not believe in capital punishment.
Okay, let's go to line three and Jim. Are you there, Jim? Jim, are you there?
I want to know if y'all going to have the opposite side on Sunday Live, someone that believes in capital punishment, because I'm 100% for capital punishment and public hangings. And I want to know if you will show the other side on your program, or you're just going to show what you want to have on Sunday Live.
Well, I can tell you definitely that I will do my utmost to get a proponent of the capital punishment position on Sunday Live, and I hope you'll call us back then, okay?
Well, when will you have that? By how long will it take you to get that?
At this point in time, I cannot give you an exact date, but when I do, you just look for my promos so you'll be able to watch the program, okay?
Well, I think you should have already had it assigned when you had this fella on there, because I think the death penalty is a great thing, and we should have some public hangings, whether they're pink, white, black, or blue, or yellow, or any color. If they do the crime, they should serve the time.
Okay, that's your position. Just watch for the pro-death penalty show, and we hope you'll call back then. Thank you for your call. Let's go to line 4 and Dave.
Yes, I wonder why they can't categorize crime. Take the top 3 or 4 worst crimes like murder and rape, and that's automatic death. It doesn't matter whether they're black or white or what color, and then take the next 3 or 4 and on down the line, and they get automatic death or they get life or whatever. And if they commit a crime, that's what they get, and there's no hem-hawing or no what. That's what they get. They get it right then. And that'll stop the black and the white, and it'll stop some of the crimes, too.
Okay, Mr. Espy has some comments to make on that. Thank you for your call.
Well, of course, Alabama's death penalty law, original death penalty law written after Furman, left no jury discretion there. If a person was charged with first-degree murder, they were either acquitted or executed. And the problem with that is it fails to take in the question of aggravating and mitigating circumstances. It really gives absolutely no consideration to those facts, having an automatic death penalty for the crime of murder. And I would like to add this. In the earlier years of our country, many offenses were punishable by death that would not be considered executable offenses today, and for that reason they did not have a lot of prisons and penitentiaries as they do today. Juries would not convict because they thought the punishment was excessive.
Okay, we've got about 4 minutes left in the program, and for the callers, with your questions, if you could, please keep your questions short so we can get in as many phone calls within the time that we have left. Okay, let's go to line 1, and Julie, you're there?
Hello?
Hello, you're on the air,
yes.
Sir.
I thought I was on earlier, but the guy asked me to hold on. But your guest there indicated a while ago that, you know, if somebody walked into his family, killed his kids and his wife, then he might shoot them and, you know, take the law in his own hands, but he didn't think the state ought to. And, you know, if he knows, I guess he's an attorney or whatever you call him, and that he would go to prison for that, but he don't think the state ought to take the right to do it as a law-abiding citizen if they did that. You know, he's never probably been too closely associated with somebody that directly has happened to. And I'm not talking about anybody's color. I'm talking about blue person, black person, yellow person. And then he made a statement that we ought to put them in a prison and for life and then make it miserable on them or something. He doesn't know how much it costs the average taxpayer that's working. I'm not talking about the welfare. You know, to keep a man in prison all his life with the federal government's restrictions, the federal government's requirements for a prison, the way they have to be, they're almost like well, they're better than a lot of people working, white and black, live now, the prisons that I've seen. And then the prisoners, if they don't like it because they got to wear striped shirts, they riot or something like that. I don't think he's done a lot of research in this, and furthermore, the Bible says an eye and a tooth for a tooth, you know. I mean, and I don't know, I guess that would mean to me a life for a life. If a man put your eye out, you ought to put his eye out. I mean, that's what the Bible says, so I don't know whether the man has any religion or what it is, but
well, he'd like to make a comment on your comment if you give him a chance, okay? We'd like to get some more calls in.
I would like to say this. I did not mean to imply that I believe in vigilante justice or anything like that. I merely made the comment that I would possibly kill them myself, but wouldn't expect the state to do so to show that I have feelings. So many of the proponents of the death penalty seem to feel that those of us who are against the death penalty have absolutely no sympathy for the victims or for their families, and this is not the case. We have feelings just like they do, and I would like to also emphasize that it was not I, but one of your caller-ins who said that they favored life imprisonment and keeping them up at the taxpayer's expense. A couple of your callers kind of remind me of one who called in down at Mobile the other day and said that our jails and prisons were Holiday Inn-like institutions. I don't know which ones they visited, but I've never heard of one of them being like a Holiday Inn with knee-deep carpet.
Okay. Watt, Espy, thank you for taking time out on your Sunday to join us on Sunday Live.
I've enjoyed it.
It's been a very interesting program. We're running out of time now, and we'd like to thank you for your calls and comments on this edition of Sunday Live. And if you have an idea as to some issues you'd like to see discussed on this program, you can send your ideas to Sunday Live, in care of Carl Daniels, WVTM-TV, Channel 13, Post Office Box 10502, Birmingham 35202. We thank you for calling, and we thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us again next week.